everywhere.
About Santorum is, well, two things I think that are interesting. One is that so many people, right up until this moment, they don't know who they're going to vote for yet.
Right.
So it's all up in the air. Second, Santorum, I think, is interesting because he's put so much energy into Iowa, and he could win. He definitely could win Iowa. I don't think he's got what it takes to go the distance, though. And I think that for the first time ever, I'm looking at Iowa and saying, I don't think it doesn't matter who wins Iowa. It's not as relevant as it always has been, in my opinion.
Well, you know, I'm not sure if I agree with Eric about that.
Of course you don't.
No, but why is it relevant? Because if you're in California or you're in Florida right now, you're thinking, well, the Iowans, they may feel differently than I do. Maybe they're not as interested in, just an example, I'm sure they care about the safety of our nation, but national security.
Well, I think what's so interesting about Iowa, I lived there 4 months working on a senatorial campaign, and I'll tell you, right there in the Midwest, people are genuine. They're different. You know, I'm from the East Coast. I've lived all over the world, so being in Iowa, to me, is really a breath of fresh air. And I think there's something special about Iowa. And unless they decide to change our whole system, I think Iowa is going to remain as important as it is. I also wanted to comment about what Eric said about Rick Santorum not, sort of catching steam beyond Iowa. I think part of the problem is that, particularly this month leading up to Super Tuesday, I mean, you really need to have the money to have a ground game in all those early primary states. And that's pretty difficult to do unless you just, unless you are a well-funded candidate.
You know, I specifically asked him about that because I did interview him on Fox News Channel late last week, and I asked him, you only have, less than 10 days for New Hampshire, but he did say that he's been in New Hampshire, and if you look at where he was in Iowa, Rick Santorum, at this point, this many days before now, he was in basically the same position as he is in New Hampshire, and he's going to be a late starter, late getter, and he has every confidence that he will do well in New Hampshire.
But, I don't think even the Republicans are going to disagree that the fact that if you look at either a Romney or a Perry, they do have the wherewithal to raise the money, to organize the troops, to do what you have to do in a political election.
And lessons learned,
does
right?
not,
After you do one, you could transfer
It's like studying the night before your finals. Some people can get away with that, and Santorum will be able to do what he did in Iowa, but he's not going to be able to do it for the whole election.
Right. Well, here's the difference. To me, what the difference is, yes, clearly money makes it, being able to have the money to do ads and having the ground game, like Ron Paul has in Iowa. But here's the thing. The voters in Iowa are very different than the voters in New Hampshire, who are then again very different from the voters in South Carolina, who are different from the voters in Nevada and Florida. We have a very big country with all sorts of different people, and these early primary states really, to me, make the distinction about how big and different our country is. And they've all got to change their messages for these particular states. They've got to change their, I think, change their campaign style because the voters are different and they have different issues. So I think that's really what the difficulty it is changing gears and making sure you've got the right campaign staff who are on message in those particular states. I mean, my hat goes off to all of these candidates because the fact that they're packing up their families and spending all this time there and working 24/7, I'll tell you, it is not for the faint at heart, simply. Not.
My hand goes out to the Iowans who are going to come out in the bitter cold and take this that seriously because, once they've spoken, some people around the country may pay attention. If, for example, a Rick Santorum pulls it off, they may say, maybe I need to take another look.
If they live in Iowa, one, you're used to the cold weather, but they take great pride in the statement that they're going to be making
great,
today.
Though? That's the American
that
way.
is absolutely great, and I don't mean to besmirch anything about Iowa by saying that I don't think you can take so much stock in who wins there in this particular election. I just think that it's not going to matter as much. I said the same thing about Huckabee last time round. But they do. They take great pride. It's a really exciting, invigorating, process to watch and to learn about politics in this country and how different that we all are.
Right. Oh, yeah. And the fact that, you know, when you look at the rest of the world, you know, how many Iowa caucuses are happening in, say, for example, North Korea? I mean, I really think, you know, not only should Iowans take pride, but we all should take pride that, you know, and for Iowans, you know, they have many United States presidents who are like sleeping in their bedrooms, you know, that they are, you know, having lunch with. And I really think it's pride, it's history, it's a great part of our electoral process.
Yeah, and you know what? That's